Have anybody with
Good evening, everybody. Today is June the 7th, 2021. This is the Moscow City Regular Council meeting that we're having this evening. All right.
Yeah, would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Art. Our first order of business this evening is the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Art and a second by Gina to approve the consent agenda as it is. I'll start to roll with Ann.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
And Maureen.
Aye.
So we will move on to item number 2, staff recognition report. Gary, do you have anything for us this
no
evening?
report this evening, Your Honor.
Okay, mayor's appointment, item number 3. I do not have any this evening. So we will move on to item number 4, which is public comment and mayor's response period. So we allow 15 minutes for. And you can come up and let us know what's on your mind as long as it's not on this evening's agenda. And I will remind everybody, there are 2 public hearings we're having tonight, so those that would like to speak at those public hearings will have plenty of time to do that. And/or something in front of Planning and Zoning and/or the Board of Adjustments. And so with that, I would give you 3 minutes if somebody would like to come up and address our council. Okay, well, with that, we will just go ahead and move right on into item number 5, which is a commission report on Transportation Commission. We have Bill Belknap with us this evening. Evening, Bill.
Good evening, Your Honor. So normally I just have the pleasure of introducing the chair of the commission, and they have the opportunity to provide the report to the council, but Bob is not available this evening, so I am filling in. So this is a report for the Transportation Commission. We currently have 8 official members of the commission and 2 ex officio. Bob Sanders serves as chair of the Transportation Commission, and Aaron Bacon serves as our vice chair. Other general members include Randy Bocol, Ben Calabretta, Rebecca Couch, who serves as the University of Idaho's appointed representative to the commission, Mary Dupree, Joe Hamilton, and Mike McGann. We also have, as I mentioned, 2 ex officio. Janet Zurett serves as the ex officio representative for the Idaho Transportation Department, and Ben Amon serves as ex officio representative for Smart Transit. We currently do have 1 vacancy, so if anybody is interested and would like to serve on the Transportation Commission, I'd encourage them to go to the city's website and fill out the application for consideration for appointment. Now, I thought I'd start off with a little bit just on the role and charge of the commission. And the primary role of the commission is to provide advice and recommendations to the mayor and the city council related to intermodal transportation issues. Really, our effort is to promote a system of transportation circulation that accommodates all users of all modes of transportation to reach their destinations safely and easily within the community. They also serve to recommend to the mayor and council policies and programs that would help implement the goals and objectives that were contained in the city's comprehensive plan as well. Over the course of last year, and it has been a bit of a rough last year, so we've had a number of meetings that actually ended up getting canceled. But the topics that we have worked on and discussed over the last year included a review and update to both the charge and membership of the Transportation Commission. You may recall that there was a very exhaustive list of ex officio members which were viewed to be antiquated because they included organizations or entities that no longer existed. And so the commission went through and reviewed that, provided recommendations for an update that was then adopted and passed by the city council. We also had an ex officio representative of the University of Idaho, and the commission felt that it was so important, this connection of transportation mobility between the community and the university, that they wanted to have a voting position on the commission held for University of Idaho representative, and Becky serves in that capacity in that slot. Shortly after that, the commission spent some time reviewing street standards and made a recommendation to the city council to shift from our 36-foot residential standard as being a preferred residential street to the 28-foot residential standard. And that image there is up here on East 6th Street. That is that 28-foot standard that allows parking on one side. There are numerous benefits the commission found, and this was really a coordinated effort between the Planning and Zoning Commission, that was looking at updating development standards, and wanting to provide a more cohesive neighborhood design. And so with their request to the Transportation Commission, the commission reviewed it and made a recommendation to reverse those standards and promote the 28 as our preferred standard. Obviously, as mentioned, that it provides traffic calming just with a narrower street with parking on one side, hopefully reducing the request or demands for traffic calming devices. And then operations and maintenance costs are greatly reduced as we narrow those roadways and remove parking on one side. It makes it easier for snow plowing and operations. The narrowed asphalt width reduces future treatment, grinding, and reconstruction costs. And so there are a number of benefits for operations and maintenance, and obviously other environmental benefits, including reduction of stormwater runoff and heat island effect from the asphalt surface. The commission has spent a fair amount of time this year as well talking about e-bicycles and e-scooters and how should they be operated on the city's transportation network. It is a relatively new and quickly growing mode of mobility, and the city has been approached by a couple of rideshare companies interested in deploying devices in the community. And so the commission has been discussing how and where those should be operated and utilized. And actually that's in a draft ordinance that they're reviewing this week on Thursday. That'll be coming up to the council to try to proactively address where these devices can be operated on roadways, bike lanes, pathways, and sidewalks. Then kind of on a slightly different flavor of this topic, shared mobility systems. So those are your Birds or your Lime scooters and other companies. The commission spent a great deal of time researching kind of best practices for management and oversight and performance of those types of systems, and kind of put together a list of best practice recommendations for the development of license agreement and performance standards. And those also are going to be reviewed by the commission coming up on Thursday of this week. The group also hosted a presentation by the Sustainable Environment Commission's Climate Action Working Group on climate change mitigation and impact assessments, and spent three meetings discussing transportation-related climate action mitigation strategies that could be considered, because transportation really provides about 30% of the total greenhouse gas emissions within the country. So we provided that input to the Sustainable Environment Commission. And neighborhood traffic calming policy development. We have, over the years, received various requests with neighbors and residents concerned about traffic volumes and speeds in their neighborhood. The commission wanted to identify and develop a standardized process and approach to addressing those requests and making assessment of when it is appropriate to install traffic calming devices. We'll be reviewing a draft of that as well on Thursday, so it should be a fairly busy meeting this week. The commission also, in its capacity, reviews all plans for future development, primarily subdivisions, and makes recommendations to the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. We've had 5 of those fairly recently, including Harvest Hills 2nd Edition, the Harvest Hills Replat, Rolling Hills 9th Edition, Anderson Phase 6, and the Edington Edition. So all of those have been reviewed by the commission along with the recommendations. So it's given the really difficult, challenging year, the commission has been hard at work on a number of topics and continue to do so. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Well, hats off to the Transportation Commission as well as other commissions in our city. Questions for Bill? Ann?
Yeah, I was the liaison last year when I know the I think it was last year, initial discussions about neighborhood traffic calming and what that would look like the threshold for making a change came about. I know they haven't discussed it and voted on it yet, but what does that loosely entail at this time?
So we have 5 specific criteria that are in the draft policy that they'll be reviewing on Thursday. Those relate to vehicle speed. So if they're exceeding 10 miles over the posted speed limit, the 85th percentile exceeds 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, that is indicative of a speed issue in that area. If traffic volumes are exceeding what we would typically see on a local residential street of 1,500 vehicles per day is another. The third would include any safety and accident history that we have in that location. And then we also look at any other special sensitive population in that area. Maybe it's a school or a park or some other facility where there may be vulnerable populations of pedestrians or others that may be in the area. And then we kind of leave the fifth of just other considerations that we may not have captured initially in those categories. If there's some other extenuating circumstance that the city engineer feels that there should be considered as part of that consideration. So those are really the kind of 5 general criteria we've developed.
Thank you. I think that'll be great to have.
Any questions for Bill? Thank you very much for the report, Bill. Splendid. Okay, with that, we are going to move on to item number 6, which is an airport grant terminal design and apron construction. We have Tony Bean with us this evening. So, Tony, if you would like to come up to the podium, sir. It looks like something went off, but...
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me. This is a fairly normal request that we make every year, is to get pre-authorizations from the FAA or for FAA grants for the mayor and legal counsel to sign. And this year, we were expecting the annual grant of $1 million that we receive normally, and that grant is being utilized for design. And then the FAA has indicated that there may be funds in addition to do terminal apron where the aircraft park, and being able to do that potentially this year. It may or may not happen, but we're asking for the authorization for the mayor to be able to sign up to $12 million in FAA grants. The first grant for the $1 million has no match. We have recently been told that the match is coming directly 100% from the federal government, so there is no local match to it. I brought a presentation to Public Works Finance Committee on May 24th, and in the interest of time, that presentation, all of the boards that were done for the open houses are available on the airport's website at flypuw.com, so anybody can take a look at that, and that is the concept and draft budget of what that concept would be that was done by the Terminal Advisory Commission that was put together of many different entities in our region. And with that, the request is to reauthorize the acceptance grant offer pending FAA issuance for up to $12 million. And any questions from the council or the mayor?
Okay, questions for Tony from council?
I got one.
Art?
So does this encompass the potential for being able to harvest some money that's otherwise unused within the FAA system to bring it here where we can put it to use?
Yeah, if it's not getting used, right now, when communities are getting 100% match, it's hard to get anything that's unused at this point. It's the match, the discretionary bucket that usually gets filled up because you have to carry a project forward or you're not ready. That's not happening this year. So when they're looking at potentially some funds for the apron, it's known as supplemental discretionary. We don't know if that program's going to exist or not exist, but both of the projects, the terminal and the apron, are the top 2 projects in the Seattle district office right now for discretionary funding for next year.
So in other words, it's good to be ready to accept it.
Yes.
Well, one of the things, I'm the vice chair of the airport board, and one of the things that we'll say is that we've learned all along through these past 7 or 8 years is grants come forward, they'll give you specify a number of money that you're going to get, but they don't give it to you all at once, and so you have to do it in incremental pieces as we're going along to make it happen. So there will be future ones that will be coming as well. So we'll be moving forward with things as they go. So that's why Tony is here this evening. Gina.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt the proposed resolution pre-authorizing the acceptance grant offer AIP 353-0051-058 from the FAA Airport Improvement Program.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion by Gina and a second by Art to adopt the proposed resolution pre-authorizing the acceptance of grant offer AIP 3-53-0051-058 from the FAA Airport Improvement Program. Maureen, I'll start the roll with you.
Aye.
Gina?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Art? Aye. Brandy?
Aye.
And Ann?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Tony. We will move on to item number 7. Item number 7 is a public hearing, the Edington Annexation Comprehensive Plan Land Use Designation, Zoning Designation, and Preliminary Plat. We've got Mike Ray with us this evening to present. Good evening, Mike.
Evening, Your Honor, Counsel. So before you tonight, we have the annexation, comprehensive plan, land use designation, and zoning designation of a 235-acre property, as well as a preliminary subdivision plat being referred to as Edington Edition, and that's for a 27-acre property. So this is the entire 235-acre property outlined in red at the center of your screen. See directly to the east is the Schweitzer property here to the east. Got Highway 95 running north-south, located to the east of the property, and then Palouse River Drive here to the north. This is the city's West Palouse River Drive Ballfields property here to the north. Primarily surrounded by agricultural and rural residential development to the west and to the south. University of Idaho's Arboretum to the north of Palouse River Drive, as well as various residential subdivisions within the Anderson Frontier additions to the north side of Palouse River Drive. So BBC LLC is the applicant, and they're proposing the annexation of the 235-acre property. So the comprehensive plan land use designation proposal is currently a combination of auto-urban residential and rural and agricultural, and the proposal is to change that to a combination of high-density residential and auto-urban residential designations, as well as a rezone proposal from the ag forest zone, which currently exists, to the combination of the residential office, which is the RO, and the medium-density residential, which is the R3 zone. Brings us to the Edington subdivision proposal, 27-acre area, proposed to be subdivided into 105 lots, which range in size from a little over 2,300 square feet to 63,105 square feet in size. Includes residential office zone, would have 20 lots, 17 of those would be townhouse lots. R3 portion would be 55 townhouse lots, as well as 30 standard single-family lots. And then just a closer view of that property again. I would note that you do have South Fork of the Palouse River, which transects the city's Ballfields property in that westerly direction. Brings us to the comprehensive plan land use designation map. Property is currently designated a combination of auto-urban residential as well as rural and agriculture. Schweitzer property directly to the east was recently changed when that was annexed. That was in the suburban commercial designation currently. The Ballfields property to the north is designated as parks and open space. And the proposal would be change designation and expand that auto-urban residential to the south to encompass the entire property, and then have the small portion, which is proposed to be the residential office zone. This would be high-density residential to that portion there. So currently, auto-urban residential and rural and agricultural. Proposals high-density residential and auto-urban residential designations. So taking a look at high-density residential within the comprehensive plan. It's highest density residential development at common densities between 15 and 26 units per acre. It points to appropriate areas for that designation, which include areas of higher activity where there's a range of uses, adjacent or in close proximity to designated arterial or collector streets, which Palouse River Drive currently is designated as a minor arterial. And then areas of high-density residential development should be located near mixed-use activity areas and corridors that accommodate multimodal transportation. And then it points to a number of different zoning districts as being appropriate. The R3, R4, and residential office zones are generally appropriate. So taking a look at auto-urban residential in the comprehensive plan, primarily single-family, ranging 7,000 to 11,000 square feet in size, a little bit more isolated, requiring automobile transportation, low to moderate density residential uses at densities between 3 to 6 units per acre. And it also could include really a mixture of single-family, twin home, townhouse dwellings, so a very wide variation of residential structures. And then it points to appropriate zoning designations, which would be the R1, R2, or R3 zones. So taking a look at the current zoning configuration in the area city impact and in the city, currently designated as ag forest, and then the lands to the west as well as the southern portion of the subject property are all within the agricultural forestry zone. Those are currently in the county. That's why it's not showing up on the map there. But Schweitzer directly to the east, currently designated as motor business. West Palouse River Drive Ballfields property is farm ranch. Primarily R1 with the Anderson Frontier additions. You've got the university zone with the Arboretum. You've got a pocket of ag forest there to the north side of Palouse River Drive as well. And then you've got a few different pockets of R3 on the north side of Palouse River Drive, as well as some R4. And then the manufactured home parks on the south side of Palouse River Drive, as well as ITD's service yard in this vicinity here, are designated as motor business as well. So this would be the rezone proposal to change from the ag forest to a combination of that residential office adjacent to Palouse River Drive, as well as the park, and a transition to the R3 zone for the remainder of the property. Taking a look at the RO zone and the zoning code, moderately intensive, includes both offices and high-density housing, really serving as a transitional zone between residential zoning districts and maybe commercial or industrial zones. Appropriately applied in the following circumstances: on the perimeter of commercial or industrial zoning districts where they abut residential land uses, where the transportation network is greater than desirable for lower density residential uses. Landforms create sites which are reasonably accessible by transportation systems which are buffered from nearby residential areas, and where the development patterns in a neighborhood will allow development of moderate intensity to occur without producing adverse visual or harm to the transportation network. And then taking a look at the allowed uses in the RO zone. So we've got, like I mentioned before, a wide variety of residential uses, attached and detached. So we've got single-family dwellings, two-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, twin homes, townhouses. Do have some urban agriculture with the market and community gardens. Some limited commercial services as well, veterinary services, professional offices, restaurants up to 1,500 square feet in size, child care activities, community neighborhood centers, healthcare services, parks, telecommunications devices, facilities, personal care services, and bed and breakfast inns are example of those. Looking at the R3 zone, it's really an increase over the R2 zone, allows different variety of housing types, appropriate where activity levels are moderate, terrain permits construction of somewhat larger structures where public systems and neighborhood facilities can be accommodated at greater land use, is guided by the comp plan, of course. And then really a combination of various residential uses within the R3. It includes single family, two family, twin homes, and townhouses, as well as some of those urban ag uses, child care facilities, and public parks. Brings us to the Edington subdivision proposal. The 105 lots on 27 acres, ranging from 2328 to 63,105 square feet in size. Already kind of gone over this. We've got 20 lots in the RO, 17 are townhouse. R3 is 55 townhouse lots, 30 standard single-family lots. And then just going through the zoning code's minimum lot size requirements for the RO zone. It's 5,000 square feet or 800 square feet per dwelling, whichever is greater for single-family, two-family, and multifamily. 1,800 square feet for townhouses, 2,250 for twin homes. And then looking at the minimum lot width requirements, 50 for those standard lots, 18 for townhouses, and 25 for twin homes. R3 zone requirements, the lot size is 6,000 square feet for minimum, 2,000 for townhouses. Lot width is 60 feet for single-family dwellings. Reduce that by 10, down to 50 if there's alley access. And then 20 feet for townhouses. And we do have townhouse standards, so since there's a number of lots within this proposed subdivision that contain townhouse lots, we do have standards in the zoning code, so I'll just briefly go through those requirements. So they can't contain more than 8 contiguous units, and the spacing between the townhouse buildings shall be no less than 16 feet. So typically you have the exterior side setbacks, which is 8 feet per lot, so that adds up to 16 to give you the requirement there. Spacing between the townhouse buildings has to include a 4-foot wide pedestrian easement as well as sidewalk. So the intention there is to join the alley and the street, adjacent in front of the public street. And then townhouse developments of more than 24 units shall provide off-street guest parking at a rate of 1 stall per each 4 townhouse units. That guest parking has to be located within the required spacing between the townhouse buildings at the rear of the townhouse buildings as well. Developments more than 24 units also have to provide functional common open space of 75 square feet per unit. Has to be functional in size, which meaning the smallest dimension can't be less than 30 feet. Has to include landscape turf areas. Also needs to include a couple of different furnishings such as benches, picnic tables, children's play equipment, or other similar items. And this brings us to our thoroughfare plan within the comprehensive plan. Showing projected roadway alignments. You can see Palouse River Drive there is designated as a minor arterial. That's the blue color. You can vaguely see a couple extensions. So this is Conestoga Street here. That intersection with Palouse River Drive. You can see the green dashed line is intended to represent a future collector street, as well as the western portion of the property. There's proposed to be another future collector street on that alignment. This is the alternate highway bypass that you see in the more solid yellow dash line there. Brings us to the proposed preliminary plat for Edington. You can see we just reviewed the thoroughfare plan, so we've got the Conestoga Street extension here at the intersection, heading south into the subject property across the ball fields property. You also have Augustine Avenue here to the west, which also provides access, designated as a collector street. Ends up teeing into the intersection, so it could allow for a future roadway to be extended to the south on this property that's not proposed to be annexed at this time, located here. Tees up at that intersection. This is called Edington Avenue. So follows more of a semi-grid network. You also have 2 side streets here. This is Chesterton Drive as well as Luther Drive. You have various stormwater detention facilities and tracks on the property. There's one located here, corner of Conestoga Street and Edington Avenue. We've also got one located here to the north. These are all alleys, so all these properties are rear-loaded via public alleys. You can see the alleys wrapping around, ending up coming back out onto Edington. Various alleys here. You also have a pathway system between the city's ball fields property and this proposed subdivision. We'll have a little bit closer of a detail, but that's located to the north side of the alley, which separates the 2 properties. Per the Townhouse Standards. Moving further down Edington, you can see the groupings, so 4 townhouse lots, so it'd be a building containing 4 units within these areas, north and south sides of the street. And then we end up transitioning to more larger single-family lot development here once you reach the east side. Still alley loaded as well. See the alley coming from Edington, cutting over and coming back out. And then it's just to give you an idea, it shows more of a construction drawing here to give you an idea of the hard surfaces of the development. So taking a look at the street network, Conestoga Street and Augustine Street are both designated as collectors, which means it's a 34-foot wide paved section, bike lanes on both sides of the street, no on-street parking is permitted, curb gutter sidewalks on both sides, and then looking at our local neighborhood streets, which includes Edington, Chesterton, and Luther. That's a 36-foot wide street section, parking on both sides of those streets, and then curb gutter sidewalks on both sides as well. Palouse River Drive, as I mentioned previously, is a minor arterial, currently not developed to the minor arterial standard, which is the 34-foot wide roadway section with curb gutter sidewalks on both sides of the street. It's currently paved, but there are intermittent curbing sidewalks, typically as a result of subdivision development that's occurred on the north side of the street. And then there's 2 points of access, proposed Palouse River Drive in the northwest and the northeast corners. So as part of that extension of Conestoga Street to the south of the subject property, a bridge will be constructed across the south fork of the Palouse River. And then I'll briefly go over the developer participation request that was approved this last month. So April 8th, 2021, the city did receive a request from the applicant requesting the city's financial participation in the construction of the extension of Conestoga, as well as the accompanying bridge construction, as it provides mutual benefit to both the applicant and the city. And then May 17th of this year, the council approved a memorandum of agreement with BBC LLC. Terms of agreement were to include the limits of the city's financial participation at 50% of the actual cost of Conestoga Street extension, up to a maximum of $1,078,210. And the city's financial participation would not come due until all the improvements were completed and accepted by the city. And then as part of that agreement, the applicant agreed to construct at the applicant's expense the frontage improvements on the south side of West Palouse River Drive, which included installing curbing, sidewalks, roadway widening to improve West Palouse River Drive to 34 feet in width to meet that minor arterial standard. And that was from the intersection with Conestoga Street and continuously extending to US 95. And this was, to give you an idea, I know you've reviewed this before, but this is the prior site plan that was proposed for the ball fields property and Conestoga Street extension over the Palouse River, extending to this subject property. Taking a look at utilities, existing mains in Palouse River Drive for water. It's proposed to be extended via Conestoga Street, and then our 2012 Comprehensive Water System Plan indicates that the existing system's adequate for potable and fire flows. Sanitary sewer, there are mains in Palouse River Drive as well. Those will be extended in an east-west direction across the ball field property to a lift station that will be constructed to serve the proposed subdivision. And then the 2011 Comprehensive Sewer System Plan also indicates the system is adequate to serve additional flows for this proposed subdivision. Storm will be piped and directed to those stormwater detention ponds I had pointed out earlier. The detention facility to the proposed development will need to meet the city's stormwater runoff control standards, which requires stormwater to be detained at the pre-development rate. And the stormwater is then conveyed to the detention facilities in the South Fork of the Palouse River. Looking at Parkland Dedication, so there's 13.36 acres of net developable land. RO requires 9% dedication, and R3 is 7% dedication. So that results in 1.02 acres of dedicated requirement. The applicant submitted a letter proposing to defer the Parkland Dedication to a later phase, just because of the proximity of this subdivision to the Playfields property. And that was reviewed by Parks and Recreation Commission as well as the Pathways Commission. And they both recommended approval of deferring the Parkland Dedication during their April 13th and April 22nd of this year regular meetings. The Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, did conduct the public hearing for the proposed comprehensive plan, land use designations, rezone, preliminary plat, and that occurred May 12th of this year, and recommended approval with one condition, that the water and sanitary sewer mains shall be extended to the western edge of the subject property boundary to allow future extension of services to adjacent properties. Staff's recommendation before you tonight is to conduct a public hearing upon the annexation, comprehensive plan, land use designation, zoning designation, and preliminary plat, and upon consideration of any testimony presented, approve the annexation ordinance under suspension of the rules. If the annexation ordinance is approved, approve the proposed comprehensive plan land use designation resolution and adopt P&Z's RCS. If the annexation ordinance is approved, comprehensive plan land use designation resolution is approved, then approve the proposed zoning ordinance under suspension of the rules and adopt P&Z's RCS document. And then if all three of those are approved, approve the preliminary plat for Edington addition with conditions and adopt Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria and standards. And I'd certainly try to answer any questions you have on this.
Quick one question, Mike, I have. You mentioned a pathway or a trail that would be the north side of this and the east side of this that goes kind of around the ball field area?
Yeah, it would be, see if I can get a closer view here.
One drawing at your hat, and you don't have to go all the way to the front.
It's this one, so you can see it here. So it connects to Conestoga Street. So this is the alley segment here. So it's just to the north of the alley, and just pretty much parallels that public alley to the north there.
Was it like a 4-foot wide pathway then or something?
We'd probably be looking a little bit larger than that.
Okay. Okay.
And you can see that in the picture here. Ends up teeing, we'll have to figure out the alignment. It's typically going to go over that sewer line that's proposed to extend to the lift station, likely be in that area, which would parallel South Fork of the Palouse River.
You have a question for?
Yeah, I was just going to
Mike?
follow up, is that the kind of sinusoidal, what looks to be a path almost along paralleling the Palouse River on, like that first picture? That one. That snaky looking
Yeah, it is.
it?
Well, yeah,
Ish?
it is. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
One other one is the stormwater detention area to the north. It looks like part of that goes into the floodplain. Is that a good thing to have a stormwater detention in a floodplain that's going to be flooding at the same time you're supposed to be detaining water?
We'll just have to conduct the analysis and make sure everything works there.
So
they
that's
may
an
have to change
engineering
the sign.
decision for
Yep,
later.
certainly.
Okay.
Other questions for Mike? Okay, I'll go with Maureen, and then I'll come back to you, Sandra.
Can you go to the colored slide that actually had, it showed the road, keep going backwards, and I'll tell you when. On that one right there, can you again explain the yellow versus the green? The green is the continuation of the Conestoga, and then there's a cutoff over there to 95. And so could you explain what that green one goes through and what the yellow one goes through and what that means vis-a-vis this project?
Well, these are just our proposed future roadways. So as development occurs, we need to look at this thoroughfare plan to know where we need to put roadways in those proposed developments. So the green line represents a collector status. So that's what that represents. You can see this extending across Schweitzer's property and tying into 95. Another green line here to represent Augustine Avenue. The blue line represents a minor arterial. So they're essentially different classifications of roadways. This is the alternate highway bypass. So the idea here, you may have heard it referred to as the ring road in the past. It's alternate highway bypass is the term. So the intention is to provide an alternate highway bypass to get some of the heavier truck traffic away from the downtown area and the intersection, specifically 3rd and Washington Street, while they're trying to maneuver that turn. And so that's the idea. Ends up connecting, I believe, with Airport Road at that intersection by Plat.
So is the city responsible for the ring road?
It's developer responsibility, so as development occurs, they need to accommodate these roadways within their proposed plans, is typically the way it happens.
Similarly, the green line that goes across through SEL property, whose responsibility is that?
It would just be, if there's a subdivision proposed on that property, then they would need to include that and accommodate that roadway into their plans.
Sandra?
Mike, it occurred to me at the end of our last council meeting, and it reminded me when I was reading our packet, that I was curious about any protections set up, or are there needed to be set up for the Palouse River itself as these things are being built, as the road connections at Conestoga is being built, and as there will be a lot of traffic on that road, that could have a pretty detrimental effect on that little swath of river there. What do we do to protect that?
We'll just have to get all the necessary permits from the Army Corps. There'll be silt fencing that'll protect that from silting in the Palouse River. Typically, there's development that occurs across creeks and rivers, and you just have to go through the proper procedure and permitting to make that happen.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for Mike before I open up the public hearing?
awesome.
Brandy?
Mike, so in the Comprehensive Water System Plan, January 2012, in the packet it said this property is considered developable. So were there any specifics, like developable to what extent, to what density it was determined at that time? And how does this align with that determination in 2012?
I think all those plans include estimates as far as future growth, and so it's based upon our comprehensive plan. So it'll be similar to what this proposal is.
So, I mean, I'm also looking at the parts where the comprehensive plan has this designated as auto urban residential, and the current zoning that it is right now, I'm assuming is when this was determined to be developable under those zones. So how is it determined that with all of this proposal, there's so many things we're considering tonight. So with these proposed changes in zoning, has there been enough time to determine that it is also within the comprehensive water plan?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you look at the future build out, and it's 20 to 30 years that these plans are intended to accommodate. And so we're looking at one small, very small area, and they're assuming that the growth is going to happen throughout the entire city. And so this small of a modification to the comprehensive plan land use designation, I would not think would be that big of an impact to the water system plan.
So it sounds like at that time in 2012, it's just particular properties are just assumed to be developed, but without any necessarily specifics
Yeah,
of
it's
how
more
they.
general, low density, medium density, high density
Okay.
are typically what we're forecasting there.
And then just another water question too. I know that the city looks at the demand forecasts and when necessary, conducts system modeling to assure that the facilities are adequate. Was it determined that that was necessary for this project? And if not, how is it determined when that modeling is necessary?
Typically, for any larger subdivision, we'll have our consultant model it to make sure that we have adequate potable and fire flows to serve it.
So that did happen in this.
I believe it's currently happening.
Bill?
So modeling currently is underway. The area of concern is not this initial phase, but the area of concern as the property develops and the elevations climb, so there's a hill as you go farther to the south, that there's likely going to need to be a booster station. And so we want to make sure we have adequate supply for the long term. And it's not only just this property, it's SEL's future campus development and all development in the south side of the community that we're looking at modeling. This first initial phase, we don't feel is going to be an issue with the water system. It's really, we're looking at kind of those future phases when potentially either additional conveyance, storage, or boosters may be required.
So if at some point in the future, after this phase, the study determines that it can't sustain a next phase of development, we deal with that at that time?
Correct. If there are additional improvements necessary, including booster or conveyance to get additional water supply to that side of the community, then the city will have to focus on identifying how we wish to achieve those improvements.
Okay.
I have another one, but so does Maureen. Just a little more information. There was some engineering recommendations that were deep in the packet, and I'm just wondering if those ones were addressed or included in here. It had to do with Augustine and some other things there.
They're included, well, the only one that needed to be included, a lot of those are addressed with the construction drawings and don't need to be a council condition. The one condition about extending utilities to the western property boundary along the Augustine alignment, that was a condition within the Planning and Zoning Commission's relevant criterion standards. So if the council adopted that, that condition would be there.
Maureen?
Bill, I have a follow-up question for you. If this is phase one, and this really comes out of looking at the minutes from the planning and zoning meeting, and it said specifically in there that there was adequate water for phase one. My question is, when phase two and phase three come forward, will we have an opportunity to vote on that as well?
Sure. Every
Phase.
subdivision plat will be a separate land use decision.
Thank you.
Which means it'll be a separate public hearing.
Right.
Maureen. Okay, well, let's open up the public hearing. Thank you, Mike. Hang in there. It is 7:44. And we will open the public hearing. We'd like to hear from the applicant, please.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Scott Sumner, for those of you that don't know. I'm a resident of Moscow, was raised here and grew up through all my childhood and everything. University of Idaho, I'm speaking for the development team at this point. We have some other members that may speak later. One of the things I wanted to emphasize with this project, and it's kind of more of a rare thing for a developer, one of the first things they said was, I'm not looking to get rich. I'm looking to provide housing for the community. And so that was one of the big things that really, brought this project to where it is now. Some of the alleyways, some of the townhomes, really, there are other things that developers can do if they really want just to maximize the amount of profit and what they wanted to do. But that wasn't the overall objective of this project. The project was to provide housing to the people of the community. We had one of the realtors speak last at the Planning and Zoning Commission that there was 10 houses for sale in Moscow. I know a lot of those houses are being bought up by people from out of town and other things. And with developments such as these, my hope is that the people of Moscow that have lived here the whole life don't get driven out because they can't afford to live here anymore, either by housing prices or they can't find somewhere to live. So when we looked at this development, we worked through this initial phase. That was really our thought. This is a challenging piece of property because of the rolling hills of the Palouse and other things that we have to accomplish and deal with in this development. So a lot of the townhomes and things that we've done on this property is really trying to hit some of our objectives with also being able to afford being able to do it, so that there is additional phases. As the additional phases go through, the thought is to not have as much dense housing, to provide public facilities or places where public facilities could be accomplished. I mean, a lot of schools and other sites require a lot of land. And there's not 20 acres just sitting around in the middle of Moscow where new schools and other things, as a lot of you guys know, there's a lot of these developments with the people can bring space and area where we can work with school districts, we can work with fire stations or other community, the Affordable Housing Trust, and working with them to provide housing for the Affordable Housing Trust or land and things that we can do in this community to build and be an asset to the community and not an eyesore or those are a lot of the goals that we're trying to accomplish with this, and working with the park and with the bridge in Conestoga Drive being extended. It's very easy for that park to now get developed, where it's an asset instead of an open field. So those are a lot of the goals and things that we're really trying to accomplish with this project, and I hope through the design and this public hearing that you guys are able to see what we're trying to accomplish. So.
Well, thank you, Scott, and we very well will get you up here back to answer some questions. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now at this moment, I'll open it up for those in favor of this would like to come up. We'll give you 3 minutes. Please state your name and address and tell us what you like about this.
Good evening. My name's Rick Beebe. I'm the old one of the bees here. Mostly I'm comic relief, but tonight I've got some serious things to talk about. So this project is a big deal. There's no question about it.
Excuse me, Rick, could you pull the microphone closer to you? Thank you very much.
Can you hear me now? This project's a big deal, and we all readily admit that it's a big deal. And my son, very well spoken, says, don't talk about stuff we can't do. And so, but in some ways I kind of have to, because I'm not going to be around here for 20 years to see the fruition of this, right? So I won't talk about what we plan on doing, but I can tell you that we spend hours and hours and hours talking to lots of different people and how to move forward with respect to this project. It is a big deal. This is 27 acres out of 235 acres. You can imagine in your mind all the things that we're talking about. And as I said before, I moved here to start school at the University of Idaho in 1961. It's my town. So the things that we're talking about here are what I'm passionate about. This is the only thing, quite honestly, that'll keep me off the golf course and out of Arizona in the wintertime, is trying to get this moved forward to what we really want to do. And it's a big deal. We know anytime you do development, there's 3 things that are always a problem. One's water, I was impressed with you folks the last meeting we were at, because I think Ann brought up that it's time to do something with water. And our honorable mayor said, yeah, we got to stop talking about this and actually do it. And it is. It's important. So I understand all of these things, and we do need to move forward with a responsible reaction to shortage of water 50 years from now. We have to. The other concern is always taking farmland out of production. I don't have as much empathy with that, quite bluntly, as I do other things. The reason for that is, unless you live in McConnell Mansion, we live in a house that was a builder built and a developer developed the property, right? So that attitude tells me that I've got mine and I don't care about anybody else. And I don't really like that attitude very well, but it's prevalent, and I understand the thought process there, but we need growth if we're going to keep our businesses healthy and provide housing for the people that want to live in Moscow, Idaho, which obviously we all do. It's an important thing. The third thing, of course, is always affordable housing. Affordable housing, quite honestly, has been my passion for a long time. We all think something when we talk about affordable housing. And my concept is really not on the word affordable, but only on the ability for a young family or younger family, or anybody that wants to come and live in the city of Moscow, or an employer that wants to hire a good hire, and they can't find a place to live that they can afford to move into. So there's lots of different ways to work on this project. Richie and I have one. We went to Boise last week and visited with Idaho Housing, who is very interested in providing affordable housing in this area. We haven't made any decisions yet. We're also working with Nils Peterson, but Nils is further down the development stage as far as the project is concerned. So I'm told not to promise anything, but I need to tell you that we have lots and lots of ideas in place, and it's something that we're very, very, very excited about.
Thank you, Rick. Others in favor that would like to come up and speak? Okay, I will listen to those that are opposed to this. Please come up, state your name, and we will give you 3 minutes to hear your concerns. What's your name and your address? Well, okay. Go.
Surprise. Let me get organized here. David Hall, 1334 Wallen Road, Moscow. I'm opposed to the annexation proposal for this hearing. By annexing this or any property in the city opens itself to supplying municipal water for any uses the property may be put to the limits allowed by city law, code, or law. This is not in the best interest of the city of Moscow, its residents, or any folks in the region, as our community uses our water unsustainably. Drawing water from the aquifers for new uses should be minimized until a clear plan, likely including a water use budget, is put into place. This annexation request is for 235 acres in full. The first platting is for 27 acres. And I had 130 lots, which I did my rough calculations on. I see it's at 105 now, with an estimated use of around 20 million gallons per year. Full build-out could be 200 million gallons a year. This is huge. The city must say no to unlimited water consumption through further development at some time. That time is now. I ask you to deny this request for annexation. Thank you, Mayor and council members.
Okay, thank you, David.
My
name's Tim Clyde. I live at 1491 Sand Road, which is in the lower right, or lower left. That kind of funny shaped one.
Has your name on it.
It's got my name on it. I can't see that from
You
here.
may not be able to see it, but I just thought I'd tell you. I was reading it for you. Your name's
Thank
right
you.
there.
I can't see it from here either, Maureen, so.
That's why I get to sit here.
I'm not going to say I'm totally opposed to this, but there's some things we need to think about. One of my big concerns is our water line, and you can see it on this map, goes from that trailer court to our house. So it's going to go under city streets twice. And that's, I'm working with the developers on trying to figure out an option, but I want the city to know that in the future, it's going to be the city's problem, because those are going to be city streets. The other problem I have is Palouse River Drive. There, you talk about developing the bridge and everything from Conestoga to the east. It's got to be widened to the west too, all the way to that other entrance. What do they call it? And it's the
Augustine.
Augustine, right.
that's currently our driveway. So you're going to take these houses and you're going to have more cars going, plus there's probably at least 100 trucks a day going in and out of there because of that landfill that's been allowed. So that's going to be all thrown in right at that intersection. So those are my big concerns. Because Palouse River Drive is very unsafe with the Arboretum there, and I hope every day that I'm not the one that hits somebody's kid. Because and especially over this last year, it just, people are outside walking and they don't pay attention too much either, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Others would like to come on up.
Good evening. My name is Tim Basler. I live at 1938 Conestoga Drive, which is just up the hill from Palouse River Drive. And I'm not necessarily against the division, but I'm concerned about traffic. And especially the U of I being the biggest employer in the city, the traffic from the division just cutting up through Conestoga Drive, the shortcut to the university, and what kind of things are being done to take care of that traffic mitigation up that road, even though Palouse River Drive needs to be widened and should be concerned about, but people may not take that road to get to their workplace. So that's my only concern.
Thank you.
Haven't been here a long time. Joanne Manita, 203 South Howard. Like the gentleman before, I have already written, and I've heard from a lot of people in University Heights, on Sunnyside, on Conestoga, on Paradise, and Ridge Road especially. People will take the shortest route. They're not going to go Palouse River Drive all the way around to get to the campus. And you're making it easy for them to cut through residential neighborhoods. We are concerned about people in Moscow having good housing. We need to be concerned about people who have housing to have quality of life there. I don't think people who have houses are looking for another place to live. They want to stay in their homes and they want to have safety. And without a plan, without working with the neighbors, without thinking of mitigation, how to slow the traffic down, how to get the traffic, are there going to be stop signs or stop lights or what? Where Conestoga, Edington, and Sunnyside go into Palouse River Drive. How are people going to get on there? I know how it is to get on 3rd Street from Howard at 8 o'clock in the morning. How are they going to do it there? It's going to be 10 times worse. I have another question. I watched the public hearing, and someone raised a question about why the zoning is, I just have glasses, I don't know how to use them. Why the zoning is R0, RO,
or residential office. And there wasn't really a good answer to that, so I looked up the code to see what residential office is all about. And I will find what it says it's all about. It's about transitional between residential and commercial industrial. Now, this is transitional between residential and the city ball fields, not commercial industrial. And he gave a list of the things that were allowed, but he left off a few of them. Mobile home park, parking lots, and garages are all allowed in RO zone. Now, I know it's plotted for townhouses, but whoever buys it can do whatever they want. Also, colleges and universities can be built there. So I think that you need to think about why that zone is RO instead of R3 or R4, which would also allow high-density housing, but not garages and parking lots. Then I looked at the application for the Edington, and it says that, oh, and I was going to say, RO is 23% of this lot. That's a whole quarter of the whole thing that you're approving. So I think you need to be thinking what you want adjacent to your city ball fields, our city ball fields. Hold on, let me find my other. And I was also concerned about any plans for public transportation. I don't see anything put in there. We're devoted now to climate control, and one way is to avoid all the traffic that will ensue and try to cut down on it. There was also a question at the public hearing about where the kids, new people there, are going to go to school. And they said, West Park. Well, they're going to go to the schools all over town. West Park just goes to second grade. Have you worked with a school district to see how many more students, what the bus line is going to be increased, what the cost is going to be to bus students from this area? In the application, I have to find the wording.
Joanne, will you wrap it up, please?
Oh, I have to quit? Okay. I just want to say, in the application, the applicant said that regarding public amenities, there will not be undue burden based on the developer. So who decides, you know, if you approve that application, who decides what the burden is and who's going to pay for the sewer line and the water line and Palouse River Drive, if the trucks rip it up and it has to be redone, who pays for that? Thank you. Sorry to go on.
My name is Doug Gadwa. I live at 1400 Sand Road, which is that square on the top left. I am not opposed, but you don't have a for or against, you don't have the middle ground request, so I'm here with the opposed. I oppose the design of Conestoga being tied directly into Conestoga because of the reasons that the lady just mentioned. It dumps the traffic out of 108 units here, which 108 units, there's got to be 2 cars per household generally. Okay, if it went straight up and picked up the West Palouse River Drive straight ahead, it would give those people an option. Do I want to take a left and go through the subdivision to get to the university? Or no, I'll just go down and take the signal light. It leaves a big chunk of city park, which is currently the bicycle park, that is being used clear to the property line. It's going to leave you with a triangle of wasted space. I don't know what the city is going to do. Are they going to landscape it? Are they going to mow the lawn, or are they just going to let it go to weeds? Or are they going to put it up for surplus and let the trailer court take it over? It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, the bridge is an issue to me, is that the 1996 flood, the entire bicycle park and the proposed baseball park was underwater. If you restrict the flow of that entire 100-year event, which that was only 30 years ago that event happened, is that bridge is going to hold back water, and it's going to flood the people all the way to 95 and the Fountain Industrial Park, unless it's designed large enough to deal with that 100-year flood event. So the RO collection that she was mentioning, I wowould be really happy if this whole project in this first phase was R1, and it was nice houses, not 50-foot lots and dumping 200 cars onto West Palouse River Drive. And people are saying, oh, they're all going to use the east approach. Now, how many of those people might work at Schweitzer Engineering in Pullman or work at WSU? They're
Doug,
going
would you
to
wrap
take
it up,
a
please?
left. Pardon?
Your time's up. Would you wrap it up, please?
I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doug. Oh, by the way, anybody that wants to speak, whether you're neutral or opposed to this, can certainly give us your 3 minutes worth. Or in favor, as far as that goes.
Jean Elliott, rural Latah County. You probably are aware of some of my concerns from past meetings. I'm going to rip through this really fast. I think with this approval, we would be rapidly approaching the loss of the quality of life we currently enjoy. This many more people would jeopardize our current loyal, longtime businesses in Moscow, invite large corporations, competitors, that would be such as Moscow Building Supply, Book People, Hodgins Drug, Market Time Drug, Winco. This would start a snowball effect. More people, more business. Businesses don't have enough business, more people. It just starts a snowball. The expense to the taxpayers of this town and the county. New schools would be required. This whole water supply solution is going to cost millions, I believe. And it's not, as Ms. Terusio was saying, this is a multi-year solution. It's not. There's no easy solution for this. Roads, cell phone towers, everything that everybody's talking about, transmission lines. This is way too much land. Things can change on a dime. Your life, your employment status. This land could need to be sold. And the uses could be completely different from what is being talked about here. Sometimes people ask for more than they think they're really going to get. That could be going on here. I'm very troubled by some of the choices this past year, regarding masks, some of the environmental stands. To me, that was not a wise decision. And how does this portend future choices? We already have several additions on the books that have been approved. This is overkill. Let's just see how we do with what we've already approved. Maybe some people from the in-town will move to these newer places, and then some of the older houses in town can be picked up for less money. So maybe this is like way too much. Let's wait and see if we need more later. We got way too many irons in the fire. And like the comments, this is just too much to digest in a short amount of time. So suggestions. I'd say don't approve it at all right now. But I don't understand this suspend the rules for 3 separate meetings. This is so huge. Why would we suspend the rules?
Would you wrap it up, please? Jane, your time's up.
And if you do have to prove it, just prove a little part of it, not the whole thing. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there others out there that would like to testify? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing at 8:10. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. I'm going to let the applicant come back up and respond. So, Scott, if you'd like to come up, or one of you would like to come up and respond to some of the questions that were asked, you can do that.
Townhomes can be a unique environment, and some of these areas, some of the larger lots that we said, I think one of them 60,000 acres, or well, 60,000 square feet. Let me rephrase that. Sorry.
Wow. That would be an overkill.
Yeah, that would truly be over. You know, there's some unique spaces here that we thought could provide people with some different things that they could do in terms of those things that an RO provides that R3 doesn't. So that was one of the, there's only a couple of the larger lots that are RO, and the rest are kind of townhomes that would fit some of the more typical uses that an RO zone would provide. As far as the schools, I mean, we don't really have control over the school districts and where they take kids and the bus routes. And with the parking on both sides of Conestoga, there's ample opportunities where we can have carve-outs for buses. We can have areas where people can pull over and safely pick up their kids. With the alleys in the back, with a lot of the more of the local traffic coming in the back, there's really a lot of less traffic on our main roads where the buses can pull off and park and kids can safely walk. We want this to be an area where people want to live and enjoy it, and where kids can walk and play and not have to worry about the traffic flying by. There's a lot of trails and things connecting to the Arboretum that we want to provide. We want to have it looping through this entire development and provide a place where people can go from the Arboretum up by the golf course and walk all the way through here up to the top of the hills and you know, provide an interconnected network through our development. As far as, I know Doug mentioned the bridge, and those bridges are designed to account for the 100-year flood event. Anything more than that, you're starting to get diminished returns. So we're taking the necessary precautions on some of these things to mitigate those concerns, and with the utilities. Doug also mentioned the R1. Why don't we make it all R1? Well, we can't continue to build houses the same way we've done them and expect prices to go down. With you hear about lumber and concrete and a lot of the pipe things that are going on right now. There's a lot of issues and things that are making it challenging to build houses. And if you continue to do things the way you've always done them, you're going to get the same result. So we're trying to come up with a more creative way to provide quality places for people to live through this development, and that sometimes comes into the twin homes, or you know, densifying a little bit, but doing it in a quality way. That is what we're trying to do with this. Gene? Yeah, I understand that if you look at the 236 acres, it is a big chunk, and there are a lot of opportunities, and we're really focused on this. And then the rest of this development, there's going to be ample opportunities for public hearings. And we are going to continue to, hopefully through the remaining phases, is to show with this one that this is where people want to live. It's a quality subdivision and place where, you know, we're adding to the city of Moscow and not trying to take away or from the quality of life and the things that Moscow, why people want to live in Moscow. That's what we're trying to add with this development. So I hope I tried to hit all your guys' questions, and if you guys have any more for me,
Thanks, Scott. Okay, now officially 8:16. Turn it over to council. Who would like to start?
All right.
Okay, Art, go right
This
after.
one's for you, Mike. Who owns the south side of Palouse River Drive between the end of the city ball fields and where Augustine comes out, is that still city? Yeah.
Referring to this section here, yeah, it's part of the city's property.
So when we get around to developing the ball fields, it's on us to develop that side of the street, right?
Correct.
Okay. Maureen?
So now I'm going the other direction. So I guess my sense is where, I guess Tim Clyde asked about that in terms of Conestoga, and could we move that over a little bit, and what's going to happen to that triangle if nothing is, I mean, if we have a road right down the middle of it and it's the middle of our ballpark, the bar field. So is there a reason why we chose to have it run and leave that triangular space?
Well, it's just aligned with the existing Conestoga Street extension. So it's just, as far as safety is concerned, you don't want to have offset intersections. You want to align those intersections to come into a four-way.
Well, so I guess I'm asking a traffic question then, because it seemed like some people raised that as a question, thinking that if it was over a little further, that people would be less inclined to go straight up Conestoga. And that would then help eliminate some of the traffic on Conestoga.
I don't know that a slight jog would allow that to occur. You know, I think if they're going to make that that distance to all the way to the university, and they're going to take Anderson Frontier neighborhood, you're going to go a little bit further to the east and use Sunnyside with eventually when that street is connected. It's currently not connected right now, but there'll be a future subdivision being proposed that would extend that street.
And so I guess on traffic issue as well, isn't there an expectation then that the townhouses would in fact use the extension to Conestoga versus Augustine Avenue?
Well, I would imagine that at least 3/4 of the development is going to end up going to Conestoga Street and heading north to connect to Palouse River Drive. I think it's a very small fraction. Maybe the people that live on that corridor over there would actually take Augustine Avenue and head over to Palouse River Drive from there.
So then somebody else raised the question on should in fact the development of the Palouse River Drive go all the way to Augustine?
Typically, that's been viewed as the city's responsibility to do those improvements to the city's park property.
So are we anticipating that because there's going to be a lot of traffic? Or wait till it
yeah,
comes?
eventually as we go through the capital improvement program, I think those will be entered in our long-term goal to improve Palouse River Drive on that segment. Sure.
Okay.
Well, as a follow-up to that, so then until the city is able to budget for and improve that part of Palouse River Drive, are we not going to allow this development to exit onto Palouse River Drive from Augustine until that's improved?
I think we'll still allow that connection. Once you get above a certain number of lots, and I believe it's 30, you need to have 2 points of access for fire department. And so that'll be an issue with emergency services if we don't have those 2 points of access.
So how quickly could we be sure that that gets done, like in advance of that development? I mean, I know that's probably not a question for you. I mean, maybe we need to talk about this in our budget hearing, but it seems like
That's a question. Bill, why don't you take a stab at that?
I mean, certainly that's up to the council's direction as we look at the capital improvement plan. If we want to look at advancing the improvement of that roadway ahead of the actual development of the city's park property. I mean, every subdivision to the north and to the east has had access to Palouse River Drive in its current condition. I don't know that, if it's 20 or 30 lots that may use that western entrance as their primary route, that we're having a substantial change to the number of vehicles on that roadway or, lessening the safety that significantly.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Arboretum in there too, sandwiched between Augustine and Conestoga. And it's outside of the improved portion of Palouse River Drive. And there's a lot of foot traffic, I guess we could say, there, and with the bike park across the way. I mean, I'm thinking of just a little concern for that section as well, and not waiting too long on that as far as this development. And also with what Maureen said with the Conestoga, I was going to ask about that too. What if it was more than just a jog? Have you considered, I guess I'm asking Scott, a more substantial movement to the west, even if it cuts through the city property, but just moving the whole thing over substantially? Is that something, yes, well,
I think, if I may, I think, they were reacting to the city's design of that roadway intersection alignment. That was the alignment that we defined that we wanted to see the roadway in, and they're just following that.
Joanne, I'm not going to
configuration.
can you not hear?
I just can't hear Bill.
Okay, Bill, could you speak up a little bit?
I can try to, yes. They were just, that alignment is just responding to the city's design and the master plan for the development of that property and our general desire to have a connected street network. I don't think you're going to have that much traffic heading north on Conestoga. It is up the hill, it is back down, it is back up, and then you hit Ridge Road, and there's no direct route to the campus. You will probably see vehicles choose to use Sunnyside instead of Conestoga because that's actually more direct up to Ridge Road to make your way to campus if you want to choose that route, but it is not a very direct route. I would not expect that Conestoga would see substantially increased traffic. But this is, you do see increased traffic as neighborhoods get connected to the community, and as the community grows, you're going to have some impact, and there's no way to promise that there won't be any additional traffic. It is a public street, and it likely will be utilized, but I don't think you're going to see a large number of vehicles use that as a route to campus because it is not very direct, and there's at least 4 stop signs on that route and significant terrain.
I'll add something to that. Back in 2005, when we were really seriously looking at that to be a ball field, and that was a concern by a bunch of people that lived up on there. And so I actually drove up there to just see what it was like. And there's no way I'd ever do it the second time without simply going out to the light, turning east, and going down 95 into 6th Street or some other direction all the way to 3rd. Because of just exactly what you said. If you've ever drove that thing,
I lived it there. I lived up
So you
the
drive
road on
over there?
Conestoga, and I would cut through Conestoga because I know the way to go, and I think it would be quicker. But I would time it, and we would see. And I would not. So I'm just saying, don't tell anybody out there. But I think it may be that it's not a problem, and that would be wonderful. But can we just sort of be assured or assure people that there is a plan to monitor that and put into place some kind of mitigation measures? If it does turn out to be a problem, maybe it won't be, which would be the best case scenario. So like whether it's changing the speed limit or putting in some kind of speed bump features or something, just some assurance that we won't just say, I don't think it'll be a problem, and then later down the road it is a problem and it's too late.
Sure. As we discussed earlier this evening in the report from the Transportation Commission, we will be adopting neighborhood traffic calming policies, and that would be something that we could certainly apply to this and monitor volumes and speeds if it's viewed as becoming an issue.
I'll throw something else out there to you, Brandon. We had this conversation back when Indian Hills was down, and we put those barriers across until it got developed below. And there was a big uproar about the traffic issue, and once they were opened up, it really was not a problem.
Yeah, if it's not a problem, that's great. That's, of course, what we all want. I think just to know that, to recognize that we need to watch for that and have some way to intervene to solve the problem if it occurs, rather,
Sure, and there are numerous treatments that could be applied if that becomes an issue.
Are you having trouble hearing, Joanne? Okay.
Holding your hand up here in front of you now.
It's to the side. It's not in front. But,
Sorry.
Yeah, there are numerous treatments that could be evaluated in the future. If traffic speeds or volumes indicate an issue there are a whole host of 10 or a dozen different traffic calming measures or devices that could be considered if it becomes a problem in the future.
And so residents would just go through the process that other residential neighborhoods have of saying, I think we have a problem here, and then the city would respond by doing some type of a study for the types of things that you said the Transportation Commission is working on that would justify needing some features. Is that
correct?
So there would be some process.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, who else would like that? Ann?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm really comforted by the fact that a policy is being developed. I think that's really great, but I'm wondering if we can be proactive even. So not just monitoring and seeing with some guarantee of that, but what kinds of things could we do to maybe even prevent that behavior from starting before it does and then having to respond to it?
Well, I think that doesn't tie in with this public hearing, does it? We're talking about a public hearing that's different.
No, I think Bill's done a great job of explaining that that's what we do every day. If we receive concerns from neighbors, we react to those concerns. We've had, I remember when the city was going through a stage where in order to stop traffic from coming through a existing neighborhood, they would put dead-end streets, Dave's Avenue. There are several of those around the city. Council took a proactive stance and said they were not going to allow dead-end streets anymore to stop that traffic flow. So again, you're talking about public streets. If we have processes in place where if it becomes an issue, we can mitigate that, as we did with stop signs in the Fort Russell neighborhood, and Transportation Commission is looking at traffic calming. I don't know how you can predict every eventuality that might occur, and we have processes in place to deal with them should they occur.
I just don't love the sequencing. I mean, I guess I feel like one of the challenges with a lot of the development it's being proposed is it is around existing neighborhoods, and then that does create pressure in the existing roadways, and they're not always designed for that, right? And that's not what we want in the long term. And so I feel confident in that, but I wish that wasn't always the case, that we needed to wait to see if it becomes a problem and then address it. I think several people have brought that up tonight, and it's a valid concern.
Well, from my point of view on that particular topic, if we do something proactive and the problem never develops, we've wasted time, money, and energy on a problem that doesn't exist.
I guess I don't think it's such a big deal if it's something like a speed bump, personally.
Maureen?
Or a changed speed limit.
Yep,
That
not
doesn't
that
cost
hard.
anything.
One of my concerns is if I lived in Conestoga and you suddenly started finding speed bumps and traffic signs that were not there before, I would suddenly feel like my way to get there would be impeded. And I don't even know if it stopped traffic. All it knows is it's bugging me to get to the university. So I don't know. I don't live in Conestoga, but I've been lost in there before. And so my own sense is that I think what I feel assured is that the city is thinking about it. It is ready to take action if it becomes a problem, and to answer the problem as it exists at that time, but not to dream of what the problem, not to be, I mean, there may be a problem, there may not be, but if there's no problem, we've done nothing. But, I mean, the answer is the city, I guess the request from me is, don't wait until it's a huge problem, but if we see all of a sudden, we start getting complaints from the people there, then we can take action on that, and I think that that's a pretty much of an assurance of what you all would do, right? Yeah, I mean, so it's not this, let's put a stop sign in there now. Is that right, Bill, or not?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And the policy is why we're trying to develop the criteria and guidelines for every neighborhood that may wish to have their traffic patterns evaluated and traffic calming. We want to make sure that that's applied equally and objectively based on what's actually occurring in that area.
Something that we all recognize is whenever you put a new subdivision in anywhere, it's going to change traffic flows. It's just going to simply change traffic flows. That's all there is to it. You cannot not have it any other way. It's going to change things. Now, sometimes those things are not that big of a deal. Sometimes maybe they are. And so as we work as a city going forward, moving forward, taking a look at this, that's how you work through it. So will traffic patterns change? Of course they will. I mean, if you're going to have different houses in different places, all of a sudden there wasn't somebody there before other than the coyotes and the dogs running around, it's going to change traffic. I mean, that's just all there is to it, folks. So, but you don't, look, and I don't like to say you don't want to impede moving forward with things, because we still have to move forward when, yes, we need housing, and yes, we need to address these issues as we go along, and yes, we are going to grow, folks, because that's just how it is. If we don't do that, we're going to be in a worse situation than what we have right now. I just thought I'd throw that out to the council. Who wants to talk? Gina.
I'm listening to the conversations tonight, and I have kind of this really excited feeling and kind of a sick to my stomach feeling at the same time. And I hear Ms. Elliott and everybody, and we're growing, and this is what it feels like. And I think that it's ever so important. We need what is happening, and at the same time, I don't want my Saturday morning walk down somewhere to change dramatically. And it's just the nature of this beast, and it like I said, makes me sick to my stomach, and then I'm kind of, like, my fingers are tingly because I'm thinking it's so cool. I listen to and know Mr. Belknap and staff, Mike, well enough to know that you are thinking through these things. Now, you're not dreaming up the worst-case scenarios to go research. You don't do that. I do that regularly, but I have trust in how we would react, and trust that we as the city would respond to our citizens' concerns at the future date if a problem happens. I'm comforted by that. The water situation, I also am comforted by the fact that our comprehensive plans are indeed 30-year plans. We have them to guide what we're doing here. And so I think that, yes, we need to figure out, David, I agree with you, 5 million %. We need to figure this water system for the region out. This is a completely other situation, completely other discussion, but it is going to happen with 2 states and 2 cities and 2 completely different ways of doing things to figure out what we're going to do with the water situation. So I thought Scott made a good statement about you can't keep building homes the same way and expect prices to change. And I would even go further and say you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. And so what we want are some things that is affordable housing, and we want our community to remain wonderful and have the same character and that sort of thing. And so we are doing something different this time to help that continue. We're trying to move forward, and I think this is the most deliberate development I've seen in a long time, and taking into account all the things we've been throwing at them the whole time. And I just am I'm impressed. I still see your faces in the crowd.
Okay, Sandra, I haven't heard from you, so let's hear from you.
Thanks. For the most part, I am really excited about this. I think everyone, when it's new and we don't have the complete vision, I think, sure, we're a little bit nervous about things. I think that's understandable. This is probably the 3rd or 4th time I have seen this come through, starting at pathways and zoning, and it's solidified a lot more in my mind every single time I see it. My biggest concern right now is actually the area that runs by the Arboretum on Police River Drive, and I think it was Brandy that said it'd be great if maybe we could move a little faster on that aspect. On fixing that, I hope we can talk about that soon and see if we can come up with a way to do that, because I do see a lot of increased traffic. Maybe not a lot of increased traffic, but you don't need a lot on that little road to make it significant, I think. Just as someone who goes out to the Arboretum enough and gets nervous just with what's there now. But I think this is a good plan. When the pathways went over it and talked about it, they were really excited to see what was happening with the bicycles and with the trails, and that was very encouraging to see that, because that's an important part of what we do. Absolutely, water's an issue. I appreciated Gina saying how grateful we are for a 30-year plan, because we are looking that far ahead, and I'm happy that folks continue to increase it and look farther ahead. And I don't necessarily know that it's going to come down to all 4 of those entities figuring it out. I think maybe we just want to cut a few out and just get it done. But that's a whole nother discussion for another day. But I appreciate the work that's done on this. I appreciate the comments that are worried. It's always good to be worried so we can stay focused on things. But I think this is a good plan, and overall, I really like it.
Well, with that being said, we've got 4 actions in front of us, everybody, that I'm going to talk about just for a minute, and then I'll come back and recognize you in a moment, okay? And so as we deliberate as a council, we've got to look at these 4 things, and we'll start with item number 1. But, Brandy, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So what about just a couple of things that came up tonight? The water line issue with the Clyde property. So we're saying ultimately, I appreciate, it's great that the developers have been in discussion with Mr. Clyde, but in the end of the day, if there's any issue with that, it's a city responsibility, right? Is that correct?
There's only private easement for that private service to cross the city's property. So when we purchased the property, that was a pre-existing service that crossed it. There is a private easement to cover that line. If we construct a roadway over it, that can remain. That line can exist. It just, if the individual needs to repair it, if it's under the roadway, they may bear that cost. They have the right to cross the property, have the right for that water line to be there. But it doesn't inhibit the city's ability to use the property or for there to be a roadway constructed upon the property across that water line.
So if there's a problem with the water line underneath the roadway, the owner of that water line has to pay for the roadway to be excavated or something? Okay. And what, the bridge has come up in a few different comments also. What is the design bridge study process plan, just to ensure that whatever bridge is built is going to meet the needs?
Well, per our floodplain requirements, a no-rise certification from a hydraulic engineer is required to basically state there's going to be no adverse effects to upstream or downstream properties. So that would be like no other, every other project that traverses one of our watersheds.
And then the last, would there be any reason to consider, I know our first action is annexation, to annex a smaller part that includes this development? How do we entertain that idea?
Excuse me, are you talking about just doing phase one? Can I get
Well,
clarification?
No, annexation is, Bill, you want to
First
explain that, or
item.
Mike? Because we can't change what is in front of us, correct? Because the annexation is for the whole 235 acres. We cannot change that.
The council could choose, I mean, you do have options available to you. You could choose not to annex the property. You could deny the annexation. You could choose to annex a smaller portion of the property. We don't have ordinances available for you this evening to do that, so you would have to pass it underneath first reading so that we could modify the legal description in the ordinances for you. I mean, the request is for the annexation of the entire property. The council does have the discretion to annex less than the entire property or to not annex the property.
I guess that's what I was going after, is this is 27 acres of the property. And I'm just throwing out there the possibility of starting with everything that's on there, but for this 27 acres.
If you, with
would have
that
to come
being
back this
said, if you
next time.
annex the whole 235 acres, any more future subdivisions is going to have a public hearing with it, Brandy.
Yeah, it all
So
has to.
if there's issues with the first 27 acres, you'll be able to deal with it in future subdivisions. So that,
Right.
so from that end of it, you're not really gaining anything, in my view.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm thinking about is all that rezoning. It's a lot of rezoning to happen all at once when, we can kind of see what happens here.
Yeah, but that's also part of subsequent development in phases, is once it's zoned, and then if plating comes through, and it allows us to reconsider everything to do with that.
I'm just not sure what the downside would be to when that time comes, however many years from now, that they're ready for something else to happen beyond that, then it's looked at again for rezoning.
Your Honor?
I don't know. Yeah.
Bill?
The only potential downside is, if you were to go through the development of phase one and the developer were to decide they wish to develop out in the county. Let's say they want to do low-density development on the edge of the city, which does not provide for the logical and orderly growth of the city. If it's not been annexed into the city, then we won't have the ultimate discretion to approve that future development. The benefit of annexation means it's in the city's jurisdiction. The council has then the discretion to make decisions about future land use on that property. If you choose not to annex it and it remains in the county ultimately has that ultimate approval authority. So the only thing we would be concerned about is if somehow the first phase was developed and then they shifted to a lower density rural residential development on the edge of town where there are utility services readily available to serve the property, which we would generally want to have that property developed inside the city at urban density so that we can protect ag land and grow in a logical and orderly way. And so you risk the loss of that ability to manage and regulate the development of property in future phases.
I'm going to go to Gary at his hand. Gary?
Yeah, additionally, you also have an applicant in front of you who has applied for annexation of this entire piece, which if it was done piecemeal, you could have it alienated, sold to someone else, pieces of it who may not want to come into the city and allow for a patchwork development. So it is a way for the city council to be able to control and approve whatever goes on that property once it's annexed.
So thinking if they then sold part of this later, but it was annexed in the city, we would still have some control over what happens on there, whereas if it hadn't been annexed and they sell it, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. One more kind of thing I wanted to bring up with this latest bill that I recently learned about with the cap on the amount of tax that can be
80%
collected
on new
construction. So that just makes me a little concerned about our ability to have sufficient revenue to support services. And it's nothing against this development by any means. I think that's a concern I would have with any right now. How do we be sure that we're in this situation able to support?
Brenda, is that relevant for what we're doing with this public hearing on this?
Well,
We're kind of off, we're getting off the beaten path.
I guess Gary had a comment, and I'm sure he's going to answer something really well, but the only reason I think it's relevant, is if we're going forward with something that I think would be a great project, and it is going to stretch all of us so thin. I mean, that's why some other communities have put moratoriums on new building right now, because then how...
Moratoriums are...
I'm not saying I want to do a moratorium.
Well, you brought the word up, so I'm going to tell you what I think, but that's like the knife through the heart, okay? That's a dumb thing to do.
I didn't at all say I wanted to do that. I'm just saying that's the reason I think it's relevant is I want to be sure that we are not saying yes and not considering our ability to actually support and what that's going to do to our services, our police, our fire, everywhere. So that's why I think it's relevant.
Yeah, I can tell you that 389 it's not the best bill, and where it goes in the future, we can't be assured of. The hard cap of 8% of the previous levy it's of concern. The reduction of losing 10% of annexations, 10% of new construction, again, is of concern. However, unless we have some cataclysmic event, urban renewal district coming out, being at end of term, typically our growth rate is not going to see a huge impact as far as 389 being applied.
So you think the new construction wouldn't be more than that 5%? Is that what you're thinking? The new construction
5%
portion?
in addition to the 3% we're limited by law.
Right.
Yes, it would be unique. That would be a boom that we have not seen.
And this is unlikely to push us over that. Is that what?
Yeah, clearly. I don't believe any individual subdivision project is going to push us over that in any given year, right? It'd have to be a singular event in that one year where the 8% cap would come into effect.
Okay.
So when we were looking at a potential impact, and historically our new construction valuation has been, somewhere in that, 10 to 15 million in new construction in any given year. It was going to have be a magnitude of 100 million in any given year before we bumped up against that 8% cap. What will affect on an annual year-to-year basis is that 90% of new construction and loss of 10% value. Mm-hmm. But the new construction valuation, I think, typically ranges at 100,000 to 120,000. So you're looking at 10 to 12,000 of potential levy loss on a $6.1 million levy. So it's not going to be dramatic. Certainly, I think it would add up over time, but it won't be cataclysmic to the $16 million general fund of the city. And property taxes only really fund about 37% of the general fund's operation. And you're only talking about
You go ahead.
Who
You
had
got your
first?
hand up.
Maureen?
Maureen,
And then I'll come to Gina.
right on.
As many people sitting in this room, I have struggled with this issue. I have asked many questions on this issue, and I continue to be torn. It's a very large development. It's a very large subdivision. I also recognize that I moved here in 1991, and I think that the housing shortage has existed since the day I set foot in Moscow, because there was no place to live. And there continues to be lots of people who are looking for housing and cannot find housing. And one of the things I like on this plan is the diversity of types of housing that is being offered. Now, I think we all look at the issue of affordable housing differently, and we would all love a house for $125,000, and I don't think they exist. I think that affordable housing with the price of wood today will be limited to how many people think that that's affordable, but I think it's better to be losing that on a little townhouse than it is all the way down there on a big house. So I think the diversity of that is very helpful. I also think that the need for healthy businesses, I know right now we have 2 companies that are working really hard to increase the number of people working here. One is SEL right next to it. And maybe I'm mistaken, but there's somebody knows how many people we expect at the SEL building, but I do anticipate that there will be an increase in demand for housing here, non-existent housing. And I also think that MC is in the process of hiring numerous people as well. And the bottom line is that it is, unless we say we're going to have no more businesses because we have no more houses, I don't think that makes sense for us. I also say at the same time, I love Moscow. I love the feel of Moscow. I don't think we can stop all development. And I think, and I also have talked about the water issue with a variety of people, and I read the notes from the planning and zoning meeting, and they thought that we have addressed the issue of water for phase 1. I do hope, like Sandra said, that PBAC comes up with a resolution soon, because I think that the chances of moving on to a phase 2 or 3 in any, is going to be limited if we don't, in fact, get that issue addressed. But I think that we need to look at something today about the plan, and personally, I'm feeling like we need to approve it right now.
Gina?
Well, I have to say that I agree with just about everything you said, and I wanted to thank Randy for the first sane discussion about that ridiculous bill that I have heard, and I appreciate the dogged nature of your questions because it really did help clarify. I do also agree that we need to approve the entirety of the annexation, and I will make a motion that we approve the annexation ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, that it be read by title and published by summary.
Seconded. You got it.
Sandra's got it.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion by Gina and a second by Sandra to approve the annexation ordinance under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings that be read by title and published by summary. I will take the roll, starting with you, Maureen.
Approve. Yeah, aye.
Gina.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Randy.
Aye.
And
I just want to say that as growth happens, I want infrastructure to match it and pace it. And that's what I hear from the community. That's the sentiment I'm receiving, and I vote aye.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
with
I like that.
Very good. So this is ordinance number 2021-02, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, providing that the land described in Section 1 of this ordinance and generally shown on Exhibit A, attached hereto and incorporated by this reference, be annexed to the City of Moscow, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after passage, approval, and publication according to law. With that, we've got action number 2.
So I have a question about number 2. With this, the land use designation. If I understood correctly in the statement, the reason statement and criteria, it says the per the comprehensive plan, high-density residential areas should be located adjacent or in close proximity to new areas. I'm sorry, I was skipping over the arterial or collector streets because we know that criteria is met. New areas of high-density residential development should be located near mixed-use activity areas and corridors that accommodate multimodal transportation. Can you just explain to me how this is a mixed-use activity area and how this accommodates multimodal transportation.
Mike, you want to take that?
Well, minor arterial includes multimodal transportation, so bike lanes on both sides of the street, sidewalks. We have a mixture of uses, so there's a public park to the north. You have numerous manufactured home parks along Palouse River Drive, ITD service facility, as well as single-family residential neighborhoods to the north, and U of I's Arboretum as well. So I would say that that includes a mixed-use area, as well as Schweitzer to the east.
And so with the planned improvements to Palouse River Drive is what will make it multimodal, because it will have the sidewalks on both sides.
Correct.
And
Correct. Yep.
okay, at what stage of this project and development would it be realistic that alternative transportation efforts would be explored? I mean, is that something that Smart Transit would tackle, or?
Smart Transit's currently looking at an east route and south route as part of their project. It would have been here except for the pandemic.
Okay.
So it's in the works.
And I can tell you, as president of the board, those are no small orders. To institute a new route is very expensive, and so there will be research. It's going on already. But as things develop, they looked at a south route and then also a west route. And so there's discussion about what the ideal route would be initially. So we are figuring it out right now.
And to Art's point,
But-
COVID did put a kibosh to it this
COVID
past year.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve the proposed comprehensive plan land use designation resolution and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reasoned statement of relevant criteria.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Art and a second by Gina to approve the proposed comprehensive plan land use designation resolution and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reasoned statement of relevant criteria. I will start the roll with Ann.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
And Maureen.
Aye.
Okay, item number 3, action number 3.
Me again?
Yeah.
I would move to approve the proposed zoning ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, then it be read by title and published by summary, and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reasoned statement of relevant criteria.
Second.
Can you show us the zoning map again?
Did you second motion?
You did.
I seconded it.
Yeah.
Right. Why are we going through this again?
Okay. Wow, so all that rest is R3, and just that little bit is RO. And the reason for the RO, I think Scott said potentially having a couple of those lots that were a little larger and could accommodate something else that maybe was like office or retail, or you're not anticipating a parking lot or garage or, okay. He's shaking his head.
May the record reflect. May the record reflect that.
Play-by-play.
Scott, would you like to come up and respond to that?
I think I did, but.
Well, no, come on up, come on up to the nodding and stuff. Let's get a verbal out of you, Scott. So this is Scott Summer coming back to answer that question.
It was not the intention to have a parking garage or anything along there. It was really more of a providing opportunities that may come along for something that fits within that zone on those bigger lots. Those lots are undevelopable in terms of the size, and coming off Augustine, where you typically don't have driveway access off of collectors or some of the arterials, or some of the, off of Conestoga as well as Augustine. So it just provided some areas where there's other opportunities that could make those eventually be developable in some form or fashion.
Can
But
I
it was
follow up
not-
with a quick question for Scott?
Sure.
But it's not our intention at this point. We don't have any real goals or plans or things in mind for those properties, other than that's what was kind of the pieces that are still there.
Yeah.
There's the townhomes it does provide, the residential office was more, a lot of the focus too, of providing opportunities in some of the townhomes and some of those lots where other types of people could utilize those.
Would you anticipate at some stage in that process, like you had a neighborhood meeting already, I know with that neighborhood, engaging them again when you have different ideas of what might go in there and make sure
If I am
get
part
some
of the
feedback about that?
process, yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Good point.
I can't control
Yep.
as much as, I mean, you guys will have more of an opportunity than I will.
Sandra has a question.
And Scott, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if this is for you or possibly Bill. This came up at a different development meeting, and I just want to say, I'm guessing this is not able to be a convenience store with a gas station on it in this area.
I don't believe it would be.
Is that right?
Yeah, residential office does not allow retail use.
I just wanted that out there.
Professional office, live, work,
Okay, well-
On that point of
opportunities.
clarification, one other thing. There was a statement here tonight that said that RO consumed, took up 23%. I don't quite believe that looks like it. It's not 23%, is it?
It could have been of the 23 acres that was being platted. Might be able to clarify that.
Oh, okay,
Not of the entire property, certainly, no.
okay,
It's of the subdivision, correct.
Of the subdivision.
The 27 acres, yep.
okay, thank you.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a motion that Art made and Gina seconded to approve the proposed zoning ordinance under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and they be read by title and published by summary, and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reasoned statement of relevant criteria. I will start to roll with Maureen,
Aye.
Gina,
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Ann.
Aye.
Okay, that brings up reading of ordinance number 2021-07, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for the zoning of an approximately 6.79 acre property described in section 1, property 1 as residential R office, RO, providing for the zoning of an approximately 228.33 acre property described in section 1, property 2 as medium density residential, R3, providing the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law. Okay, with that, number 4, you want to?
I have a question again.
Go ahead.
With number 4. All right, so I'm going back to this little stretch of Palouse River Drive, west of Conestoga to the Arboretum. And I know that that is not a part of a condition anywhere thus far. We already have approved the condition of sharing half the cost of the improvements of Palouse River Drive to the east to 95.
And the bridge.
And the bridge. And we've talked about the city will need to do the rest of this. Can we, I don't know, propose a share of that little piece too? And just now say, well, or revisit that? Get it at least to the
Gary-
Arboretum, so
Gary,
we
I'll
got
let you-
sidewalks to the Arboretum?
We can certainly open discussions with the developer, however, making it a condition that they improve our frontage
Yes.
is not likely something that the law would uphold.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Brandy, I'd love for Rick to do that, but he's been, but that really isn't, I mean, that's something
Okay, well, I
that should
guess I want
belong
to
to
make
the
that
city.
our condition on ourselves. I
Well-
feel we need to do at least that part of it if we're going to approve this plat.
We can sure look at that as part of our major challenge areas and move forward that, remembering that all this development's not going to happen instantly and overnight. So we have a little bit of time to move that up the list of to-dos.
And it is our responsibility, so.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
will be reviewing our CIP continuously. We're coming up on the budget process, so certainly if that is a priority of the council, then we can adapt that to the budget, whether putting a timeline together, Bill and I can talk about it in the CIP.
yep, I think that would be something be good when we do our budget talks, Brandy. Okay, Gina.
I move and I'm going through this whole long paragraph. I move that we approve the preliminary plat for Edington Edition with conditions and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reason statement of relevant criteria. Is that right, Mike?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
It was completely confusing.
Okay, we have a motion by Gina and a second by Sandra to approve the preliminary plat for Edington addition with conditions and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reasoned statement of relevant criteria. I will start the roll with Ann.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
And Maureen.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Well, with that,
Turn the lights back on.
Scott's gonna run now.
we're going to take a 5-minute recess, everybody. It's 9:01, we'll return at 9:06.
Mine too.
Okay. Okay, we are back at 9:08, and we are on item number 8, public hearing, ordinance amending Title 4, Chapter 6 of Moscow City Code regarding amendments to the sign code. Michael Ray is with us again. Mike, you have the podium, sir.
Thank you again, Your Honor. So before you tonight, we have a public hearing for our sign code ordinance. This is a project the Planning and Zoning Commission's been working on for about the last 6 months. So this all stemmed from the Supreme Court ruling, Reed versus Town of Gilbert. It was regarding content-based restriction on signage. So the Town of Gilbert had previously adopted a sign ordinance which regulates signs which could be displayed in public areas. The ordinance ended up imposing more stringent regulations on signs which were religious in nature compared to other types of temporary signage which was displayed in the public right-of-way. And so whether it be political or ideological messages there. And the First Amendment of the United States Constitution prohibits states from enacting laws that abridge the freedom of speech. And then the Supreme Court ended up holding that the Town of Gilbert had imposed content-based regulations that did not survive strict scrutiny because the ordinance wasn't tailored to further a compelling government interest. So as a result of Reed, any municipal sign ordinance with different regulations for different categories of signs is content-based as long as the categories are defined by the content, topic, or subject matter of the sign's message. So if you have to read it to know what type of sign it is, then essentially it's illegal. So taking a look at our current sign ordinance, we have various sections which would apply here. So political, real estate, parks and recreation facility identification signs, as well as subdivision entrance signs would all fit into this category of content-based. So looking at the proposed updates, going through the definitions section, we have various definitions that need to be inserted and updated as part of this. Exempt signs, adding some language there, and then shifting a lot of these political, real estate, ideological signs into the temporary sign category. Is typically the way most municipalities handle, and that's the way we're proposing to handle it. And then the conversion of the table format. So as we've gone along and converted a lot of our zoning code from narrative to table format, it's a lot more user-friendly and easier to navigate and reduces pretty much the length of those documents. So we're able to do that in this circumstance as well. So looking at temporary signs, looking at residential zoning districts, so this is going to cover a lot of the ideological message signs that people usually display year-round. It's going to cover real estate signs. It's going to cover political signs. And so this is really what we're shifting to, not necessarily calling those signs out by name because we can't anymore, just calling them temporary signs. And so trying to accommodate all those signs under one section, it was our intention here with temporary signs. So residential zoning districts, a maximum of 6 square feet of total sign area per sign shall be permitted on private property. And this is really the standard we have right now for most of those types of signs. We're not deviating from that. A maximum of 3 signs for permitted per lot, except as provided within section C below. And then this is the section that really handles all of the political signs. So there's going to be no limit for temporary signs displayed on private property. The time between 60 days preceding the first day of the primary election, general election, or vote for office or ballot measure, and 7 days following the day of final election or vote or office or ballot measure. So really accommodating for those types of signs, but not specifically calling those political signs. And then, assuming that there's going to be some non-residential uses in residential zones, could be institutional uses like churches, community centers, uses like that, which tend to display some types of temporary signage that's beyond really a political or a real estate sign. Trying to accommodate for that to say that those non-residential uses shall be permitted to display more than 3 temporary signs and or temporary signs which exceed 6 square feet in size, but are required to obtain a temporary sign permit which may be displayed for 1 consecutive period not to exceed 45 days per year, except as provided within section C above. So this is not out of the ordinary of what we currently do. We allow temporary signs to obtain temporary sign permits, so just inserting kind of that current language that we have within the regulations. So looking at commercial zoning districts, so this is going to be crafted similarly to the residential, only the size is increased. So 32 square feet of size per property, 1 sign permitted per lot, except as provided below. Subsection C, of course, covers the political signs there, so same language. and then allowing one additional or one temporary sign which exceeds the 32 square feet required to obtain a temporary sign permit displayed one consecutive period not to exceed 45 days. So similar to the residential zoning districts. And then, of course, recognizing some of these signs that we currently see out in the city right-of-way. It could be a yard sale sign. More often than not, it's an open house sign by a real estate company, although those have been more infrequent these days since the housing market's been so hot. So looking at temporary signs in the city right-of-way, maximum of 6 square feet of total sign area and maximum height, 3 feet shall be permitted per sign. And then we go through a whole host of requirements. Maximum of 6 signs are permitted per event, which the signs are advertising. So we don't have a plethora of signs really proliferating the city. Is the intent there. Maximum of 1 sign permitted per street intersection to control some of that clutter. Temporary signs may only be displayed during the day of the event and must be removed within 2 hours after the event's taking place. They have to be entirely outside the roadway and 1 feet away from the curb. They can't obstruct the sidewalk, shall maintain at least 4 contiguous feet of unobstructed pedestrian access. And then the sign does not obstruct pedestrian or wheelchair access, so sidewalks to transit stops, ADA parking spaces, ramps, buildings that have fire escapes can't be blocked either. And then it can't be placed on anything that's city property or city owned or maintained, so structures that include but are not limited to street signs, traffic control devices, utility poles, hydrants, more permanent things of that nature that is city property. So this brings us to the conversion from narrative to table format. And so previously you'd go by zoning district, and then you'd have the duplication of all the different types of signs in a narrative format, and it'd have all the regulations. Now we've broken this out into a table format. You've got the various types of signs here on the left column: freestanding, monument, projecting, suspending, and it goes on. And then we've got the zoning districts here. So this is residential, goes from ag forest all the way to R4, multiple family. And then you've really got a sliding scale. The higher intensity, the zoning district, generally the more signage you're permitted within that zone. And so I'm just going through kind of a classic maximum square footage, height, number of signs permitted, clearance from grade to the bottom of the sign. All those requirements are now included in this table. Similar to the commercial zones, so set up the same as the residential zones. And of course, we got the footnotes at the bottom with the superscripts that point to those. And I did want to make one note here that we ended up, I believe there was a table that got inserted that reflected in an older version, and staff would like to recommend that council have that as a condition. We have this footnote that states that institutional uses are permitted to have 32 square feet of size and up to 48 square feet through the issuance of a conditional use permit. And that's typically intended to be in residential zoning districts where you have some of these large institutional uses. We have that footnote here on the freestanding signs with a maximum square feet. So you see the 7 here after all these. We originally intended to have this under monument signs as well, since they're so similar in nature. And we actually would like to direct people towards monument signs because they're more of a pedestrian neighborhood scale than freestanding signs. And so that was intended to have that footnote at the end of the monument signs, but that didn't make it into your packet, I saw. So just wanted to make that addition as a recommendation. So just carrying that over to commercials as well. And the Planning and Zoning Commission did spend quite a bit of time on this, and they conducted a public hearing on the proposed ordinance May 12th of this year and recommended approval to City Council. And staff's recommendation is, after considering public testimony, approve the ordinance with modifications under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary. I'd certainly try to answer any questions you have.
Questions for Mike before we open up the public hearing?
Mayor, before
yes.
I do have a couple. So I didn't touch base with Mike. I didn't touch base with Mike before this. I did send him an email, but it was a little late. I noticed a few other edits that we need to make. So if you go to page 2. The definition of entity. number 8.
Yep.
It should say after place, there's a comma, it should say or subdivision, and then delete solicitation or request for aid. That should have been deleted, but wasn't. And then there was a few other like punctuation that we fixed that doesn't change the meaning of it, but Tamara and I did go through and find a few more. Thanks to Maureen, she brought that to our attention. And then there was on page 4, just adding the word and, so under exempt signs, number 4, after digital signs, comma, and electronic message signs, it was just missing an and. Everything else is just minor grammatical punctuation.
Okay. Maureen.
I would like to say I particularly like the charts. It's so visible, it's so easy. I appreciate you taking the initiative and making those, the charts available and so useful. User-friendly is my theory.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mike or comments before I open the public hearing? Thank you, Michael. We'll open the public hearing at 9:19 for anybody that would like to come up and speak. Please give us your name and address, and you can tell us what your thoughts about the sign ordinance is. Well, I waited long enough. It's 9:20, so I'll close it at 9:20. Thank God it was 9:19 and 30 seconds or something. With that, I'll turn it over to council.
I will also say the chart is great, and this is one of those things I would never have had an idea of how much time and discussion and going through all of those and back and forth between planning and zoning and city staff, because I was the liaison 2 years ago and I remember this topic. So I know it has been worked through very carefully.
Sandra?
So with that, I'd like to move that we approve the ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary, and that we include the edits from our city attorney.
Second.
Is that Maureen that got the second?
It was, sir.
Okay. Okay, we've got a motion by Sandra and a second by Maureen to approve the ordinance on the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings and be read by title and published by summary, and it includes the corrections that our city attorney, Mia Batista, made. Is that correct? I'll start with Ann.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
And Maureen.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, we have a ordinance number 2021-08, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for the amendment of Moscow City Code Title 4, Chapter 6, providing for the conversion of portions of the sign code from narrative to table format, providing for the provisions of this ordinance to be deemed severable, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from the date of its passage, approval, and publication according to law. With that, we will move on to item number 9, our FY 2022 proposed stormwater user fee, and we have Tyler Palmer with us this evening. Hello, Tyler.
Good evening, Mayor. How are you?
Good. How
Council.
you doing?
Happy to be here. I am going to try and keep this relatively short, since most of you could probably recite this all back to me at this point. We've all been talking about this for a long, long time. What I have before you tonight is the stormwater Phase 2 permit and our fiscal year 2022 proposal for the rate for our stormwater program. So just as a very brief reminder, the city was issued an MS4 permit, which stands for Municipal Stormwater System permit, in October of 2019. This permit is issued under the NPDES program, the National Pollution Elimination Discharge System program, and it is a requirement that the city meet the provisions of this permit. It is issued by the Environmental Protection Agency. It is overseen now by the state, who has primacy over these programs, And so there's a series of requirements, things that we have to do in order to meet the provisions of the permit, which ultimately is an attempt to ensure that our runoff, our water that goes into our storm system, doesn't have a negative effect on the receiving water bodies. And so in our case, that's largely Paradise Creek, a little bit of the North Fork of the Palouse River. So some of the provisions that have to be included are public education and outreach. We have to have illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction and post-construction site runoff control, pollution prevention and good housekeeping, monitoring and record-keeping requirements, and then there's a whole series of enhanced maintenance requirements that we have to engage in. So the city has started several years ago developing a plan. We worked with a consultant called Aspect Engineering, who has done several stormwater plans, including the city of Pullman's. So they were familiar with the Palouse, our soils, and our conditions, which was very helpful. In February of 2020, we had a workshop with the council. At that point, the initial ESU, which is equivalent service unit, was proposed to be $12.50 per ESU. An equivalent service unit ends up being the average amount that the average residential property in Moscow will be paid. And it's a calculation of the average amount of impervious surface on a residential lot in the city of Moscow. So about 90% of the residential properties in the city of Moscow have what would be one ESU. And so $12.50 was the initial number that was generated as we looked through the needs of our system and what would be required to meet the provisions of the permit. Staff worked on that number under direction from council administration, and we were able to cut that back to $9.40, so about a 25% reduction by the time we had that council workshop in February of 2020. Since that time, we've really taken, as I said last time, every cutting implement we could come up with to this thing, machetes, scalpels, hatchets, all we could find. And the number that was presented to Public Works Finance Committee on May 24th was $7.92, which is staff's proposal for the fee that would be applied to the fiscal year 2022 budget. And so that's really what we've got proposed here. There's no fluff in this. We're going to meet the provisions of the permit. We're going to get there. It's going to be, as the council is aware, we delayed for a year with the COVID pandemic. And so that exacerbated what was already a pretty short runway on this. But staff has done really impressed with a lot of the folks in our environmental services and street storm departments who've worked really hard to try and make this work, in addition to finance, our engineering department. A lot of people have put a lot of work into getting this to where it's at right now. And so this is kind of one of the last steps in the process, is getting this rate approved for that budget. We have a budget generated based on that rate that, with council's approval, we will then include in the FY22 budget. And we will continue with our robust public outreach efforts on this topic. And so with that, I would be happy to stand for any questions.
And with the good news of that, it came down quite a bit from what it originally was.
Yes, a total of,
it was going to be, so that's a good thing.
About 37% from where we started.
Yes, this is a new fee, and there's not really a whole lot we can do about it because it's an EPA mandate for us. So questions for?
So my own two questions are, one, making sure that we can get it, just assurance that says you can get it done in 5 years, right?
We're going to make it happen.
Okay, and the second one is this has been a major cut, and so I want to make sure that you, that congratulations for doing it, and I'm standing there assured that you're correct.
You gotta put the heat on it, Tyler. I love that, Randy.
Is there any way to predict, do you anticipate future years that there will be much of an adjustment? It's too soon to know.
It's a little too soon to know there. So we anticipate this rate being fairly consistent for the first permit term. One of the initial projects that we have to engage in is just the cleaning and inspection of the system. And so that will help us flesh out our capital plan, and that will better define the capital needs that we have in order to properly maintain the system. And so that will have an impact as we start to get more information about what's out there and get more accurate information on the condition of the system.
Art. Does this project include city maintenance and repairs and things to the detention ponds, or is that a whole separate?
No, the detention ponds are included in the storm system, so any city-owned detention ponds are included within this program.
Other question?
So does it, how much of an impact does it have, just since we're in the reality of a lot of new developments right now? I mean, do you kind of build in a cushion for anticipated developments that will have new retention ponds and things like that, or
Yeah, there are requirements for the new developments, and so they have requirements that they have for the rates that they have to detain within their systems. And, you know, one of the bigger impacts that we see typically, I went through the launch of a stormwater utility at a previous city, and one of the big impacts was just getting the development community, the construction folks, the concrete truck drivers, et cetera, used to the new regulations to be in compliance with their stormwater pollution prevention plans. I don't anticipate as big a learning curve because our engineering department has done a really nice job in the ramp up to this, starting that education process. But that's where we see a little bit more of the need for education.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Gina.
I would encourage you, Tyler, as you already know, that any education that you've started, please continue until all of us have hair the same color I do. I would also make a motion, we approve the proposed stormwater user fee rate of $7.92 for FY '22.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion by Gina and a second by Art to approve the proposed stormwater user fee rate at $7.92 for FY 2022, and I will start the roll with Maureen.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Ann.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Tyler.
Thank you, Mayor.
With that ends our meeting except for reports, and I think we'll go through reports quickly, and then we will go to an executive session. I'll start with you, Art.
Yeah, Farmers Market Commission met and discussed how things are going so far this year, which is pretty darn good. And it's going so well that they're looking at doing away somewhat with the drive-in pickups for produce at the farmers market and restructuring that a little bit. They're also looking very hard at how local other ingredients are, like sugar syrup for people who are making flavored syrups for sale and things. They're getting right down to that. Volunteer Fire Department went through a lot of stuff, and the big thing that they're looking at is getting a hold of an ATV with treads for winter use in the snow, which is kind of cool. And they're also looking at systems to keep track of how well the volunteers are doing, how they're keeping up with their training, issues like that. So they're using point systems to keep track of just how up-to-date people are, which is also a good thing. Urban Renewal Agency met back in May and moved forward with the 6th and Jackson project, received the latest plans and agreements there and are moving forward. There's, as always, a few hiccups, but moving in a positive direction. And met again just last week on the 3rd, reviewing the budget for next year and considering the joys from what emerged from our legislature over this past session. So those were the latest.
Okay, Brandy.
The Arts Commission, I'm trying to jog my memory here back in, we meet tomorrow, but the May meeting, there was discussion about 3rd Street Gallery exhibition ideas for 2022, and it's really fun to listen to a bunch of creative, artistic people even have ideas of what kinds of shows could be here. So we'll be expecting some really neat shows in 2022. Also discussion about the Mayor's Arts Awards, just the call for nominations process. There were some changes to that, which I know you've seen, and that's all gone through. So we'll get to look forward to hearing who those awardees are as well. And there was a art donation of these really cool 5 works by Pam Overholzer that were offered as a donation to the city's portable collection by Wendy McClure, who has been on the Historic Preservation Commission and Planning and Zoning. And there's this little display down at the Arts Director's office on the 1st floor where there are these, I don't know if it's up there yet, but there are these small kind of little windows and these little architectural, 3-dimensional of historic buildings in the downtown They're really neat, so keep your eye out for those. I'm not sure when they will appear and be displayed, but they're really neat. They're these little models, so.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. That's all I have. Parks and Rec was canceled.
Okay, Ann.
I also had one canceled and then was unable to attend the other, so nothing from me.
Okay, Sandra.
And I feel like I stepped in for you when it was canceled. I don't remember what it was. If you tell me what it was, I can give a report.
Was it Tree Commission?
It was Tree Commission, yes, thank you. I was looking at Anna, I'm like, going, shoot, I subbed once. And I'm happy to say that there wasn't a whole lot that went on at Tree Commission. I was sort of excited to learn the ins and outs of it, and it was just very chill, which was also nice. I can't remember if I updated Pathways before because we meet tomorrow, but I will say they were handing out stickers at their Bike to Work event, and that went well. And they also had their farmers market table, so they were really happy to get those out of the way. They were very relieved about that. And they were excited about the Edington developments. So if I report on that last time, I'm sorry about that. Sustainability group, they're working hard with the Moscow High Environmental Group with the Bee City USA. And that group, they already have little bee houses up at Phillips Farm. And it was just really fun to hear them progressing. Last year I was on a different commission talking about doing this very thing, so it's really cool to see that progress. And that was the main thing that happened there. And then we had CETA the other night. And I think it's always good news when nothing big happens there. So there was nothing big that happened there, so it went really well.
Okay. With that, we'll go to Gina. Gina.
It must be going around with cancellations. Here must be summertime. Fair and affordable housing was canceled. We could not get a quorum, and they're off having more fun than going to our commission meetings. Transportation, we will meet this Thursday. They gave a report, a very good report, Bill, about what they've been working on, and that was essentially what I was going to tell you, only far more articulate about what they're talking about as far as e-scooters and bikes and that sort of thing. PBAC Communication Group will meet Thursday, too, and then PBAC, the whole group, I think, meets next week. And Clearwater RC&D is winding seriously down, and I believe that they are in the middle. Last week we had a discussion about whether or not CETA would take over the last project that they've been kind of managing, and that I believe will be the bell at the end of the game. So I'll keep you updated on that, but it should happen here by the end of the year.
Tell the PBAC folks we're ready for the alternative
Yeah.
water source. For
That's
crying
for
out
dang
loud.
sure.
Move forward. Maureen.
The Human Rights Commission met and basically beginning to plan for what's going to happen in the fall, because that's when things start to begin happening again. And they did a farmer's market table, but I was out of town, so I don't know how that went. In case anybody went there, they could report on it. And P&Z, there's no reason to repeat what went on tonight.
Very good. Well, I had an airport board meeting on May 26th, and the good news is we are going to have a Boise service starting sometime in August, and thanks to the University of Idaho.
Oh,
and
that was so
President
fun
Green
to
and
read
his
it in the paper.
Yep, that's going to be a big deal for us, and it'll be a 3-year service for sure, so we're really looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be a big thing for us, and actually, and perhaps an additional flight in addition to that in August. And of course, we had our Schweitzer groundbreaking ceremony here June the 2nd, which was very nice too. I got a chance to be a part of that, and so we're looking forward to it. We heard a little bit about that tonight with the annexation of the other property. And then we had a kind of neat onboarding for new employees, first time in about 15 months in person. June the 3rd, that was great to get a chance to have a small audience of new employees and talk to them, so it was pretty cool. Gary, do you have any reports for us?
I think you covered everything.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session per Idaho Code 74-206, 1C and F, and this meeting will not convene.
So moved.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so we close this at 9:37. What, you got a problem?
I need an official motion and second to go into executive.
Sandra made the motion.
I seconded.
Maureen seconded, and everybody did it.
So way to be
You got it?
And we have an executive
Thank you,
meeting.
Sandra, and thank you.
So Victoria, we have an executive meeting.